Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into something fundamental. It's this failure mode that seems to be running quietly underneath almost every big tech debate right now.
It really is. I mean, you see it everywhere, from AI policy to biotech governance, even climate strategy.
And it's this invisible fault line, right? It makes these huge, high-stakes discussions feel, well, impossible. Like everyone's talking past each other, even when they start with the same facts.
Exactly. And our analysis today points to a single core breakdown. It's the loss of our collective sense of proportionality.
And that sounds a bit academic, but the stakes are they're incredibly high. The material we reviewed describes proportionality as the core operating principle of good governance, of sound engineering, of just effective strategy.
And when you lose it, things really break. It's not just that decision-making gets slow.
No.
The whole system starts to, and this is a quote, oscillate between paralysis and overreach.
I love that phrasing. So you get this reckless innovation, and then some small, predictable failure happens, and everything just freezes. It makes the whole system brittle.
Perfectly put. Brittle.
So that really sets our mission for today. If the science of responsible innovation is going to be more than just a catchphrase,
It has to be.
it has to be, then we have to start by getting this sense of proportionality back. So we're going to unpack what it really means, look at the four big forces that caused it to collapse, and then explore the really dangerous results. Okay, let's just dive right in. Proportionality. It sounds like something from a philosophy class, A bit abstract.
The rhetorical nicety, maybe?
Exactly. But the sources we're looking at say, no, it's a disciplined habit.
Mhm.
So what's the actual, working definition we should be using?
Well, this is what's so fascinating. It isn't just about being reasonable. It's the disciplined ability to think about four very specific things at the same time. Magnitude, likelihood, reversibility, and distribution. If you can't hold all four of those in your head at once, you just can't govern complex systems. It's that simple.
So those four things become four questions every team, every regulator should be asking them.
Precisely. First is magnitude.
Yeah.
So how bad would the harm be if it actually happened? You have to get a sense of the potential damage.
Right. And second, likelihood.
Yeah. How probable is it? And not under some, theoretical lab conditions, but in the real world. You have to move past anything could happen to what's actually likely to happen.
And the next two are the ones I feel get missed all the time.
Oh, absolutely. They're critical. Third is reversibility. If the worst happens, can we undo it? Can we put the genie back in the bottle?
Which is key for things like, say, releasing a gene drive into the wild or deploying autonomous weapons.
Exactly. Some decisions are just permanent, and they demand a much, much higher level of scrutiny. And then finally, distribution. Who gets the upside? And who's stuck with the downside?
That one connects risk direct to justice and fairness.
It has to, because risk is never spread evenly, is it? But to make this less abstract, just think about a field like engineering.
Okay.
An engineer knows a hairline crack in a cosmetic panel is not the same as a fracture in a load-bearing beam, right? A memory leak isn't a reactor meltdown.
Of course. The whole field is built on that kind of distinction.
It is. Safety engineering is all about distinguishing tolerable from intolerable risk. Billions of dollars are allocated based on that proportional assessment.
And it's not just engineering. Our whole legal system does this, differentiating between a misdemeanor and a felony.
Or how financial regulators treat a giant systemically important bank versus a small local credit union.
Right.
Proportionality, according to the source material, is basically the immune system for a complex society. It's how we stay functional when we're surrounded by uncertainty. If you can't tell the difference between a small mistake and an existential threat, you've lost the ability to govern.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. If proportionality is so fundamental, why are we losing it? What happened?
Well, it wasn't one thing. It's this convergence of four reinforcing dynamics. The first is what the source calls scale without intuition.
Scale without intuition.
It's a very modern problem. Our technologies, AI, global networks, they operate at a scale and speed that our brains just can't intuitively grasp.
Yeah, it's not like building a bridge anymore where you can see the potential failure points. Now, one software update can affect, hundreds of millions of people?
Instantly. Or a tiny parameter change in an algorithm can crash a market. And when the scale and speed are just beyond our mental models,
You default to the simplest shortcut.
you do. You default to worst-case thinking. Catastrophic framing becomes the default because it's the only way we feel like we can impose seriousness on something we can't really get our heads around.
That makes so much sense. If you can't calculate the likelihood, you just focus on the massive potential harm and demand a response to that.
Precisely. Which leads right into the second driver, and this one might be the most corrosive. It's the moralization of trade-offs.
Oh, I see this all the time. It's become almost taboo to even acknowledge that a trade-off exists.
It has. If you say, for example, that being overly cautious on biotech today might prevent us from developing a cure that saves millions in 5 years.
You're treated as being callous or unethical.
Yeah, you're accused of not caring about the theoretical risk today. And it takes real courage to stand up and say that zero risk is impossible, or that, restricting access to a technology might actually hurt the most vulnerable people. Certainty gets more clicks than probability. Apocalyptic warnings get amplified and funded, while a sober, calibrated risk assessment gets completely ignored.
The incentives are just totally misaligned.
And this bleeds into how organizations work. Leaders learn pretty quickly that the safest rhetorical position, the one you're least likely to get punished for, is the most extreme one.
So you prioritize escalation over calibration. You call everything an existential risk just to cover yourself.
Even if you know it's not. And then you have the fourth driver, compounding all of this, institutional fragility.
The general erosion of trust in regulators, in companies, and experts.
And when you, as a society, feel like the institutions in charge are too slow, or captured by special interest, or just reckless, what do?
You have to compensate somehow.
The only tool you have left is to inflate the severity of every single risk. Catastrophic framing becomes a substitute for having governance you can actually trust.
And that just weakens the institutions even more, because they can never live up to that impossible standard.
It's a vicious, self-reinforcing cycle.
Wow. Okay, so when those four forces combine and proportionality collapses, you get these predictable pathologies.
Yes. 3 predictable and very serious pathologies emerge. You see them in AI, in biotech, in energy, pretty much everywhere.
So what's the first one?
Risk flattening. This is where minor harms and genuinely existential threats start getting treated as if they're morally and practically the same.
This feels like the most dangerous one to me. It seems to destroy any sense of priority.
It does, completely. When every problem is framed as an existential threat, a small case of algorithmic bias, or an uncontrollable supervirus, your attention just gets spread incredibly thin.
And the result of that flattening is?
The great irony. The truly catastrophic risks, the ones that need heavy, focused, disproportionate oversight, they often get the least. All the resources get wasted on these high-profile but low-impact issues, while the hard systemic safety work gets ignored.
Okay, so that's the first. What's the second pathology?
Decision paralysis. Think about it. If you're a leader and you're facing these two totally incompatible absolute demands, one side is screaming zero risk is the only option, and the other screaming move fast at all costs. What do?
You can't satisfy both, so you retreat.
You retreat, you delay, you defer, you commission another study. You engage in symbolic actions that look good but don't actually manage the risk. Progress just stalls. Not because the risks are too high, but because the debate has been framed in a way that makes judgment impossible.
And the third one, which feels very familiar, is backlash cycling.
Yes. So technology gets rolled out under this cloud of, inflated fears on one side and unrealistic promises on the other. And then inevitably it fails in some small, normal, totally fixable way.
But because the conversation was all or nothing,
that normal failure triggers a massive, disproportionate overcorrection. Regulation swings from, say, totally permissive to completely prohibitive overnight. Public trust just evaporates.
And you lose the good along with the bad. The potential benefits are just sacrificed because we couldn't handle a normal, predictable setback.
Which brings us to the real kicker in all this. The analysis calls it the illusion of safety.
The illusion of safety?
Because catastrophic framing feels like the responsible, cautious position. Demanding zero risk sounds so ethical, doesn't it?
People definitely mistake volume for virtue.
They do.
Yeah.
But the reality is, this posture often makes us less safe. When you treat all risk as intolerable, what happens? The activity gets driven underground, it goes offshore.
Innovation ends up concentrated in the hands of the least accountable actors.
Exactly. The responsible people who want to manage risk openly and proportionally, they just leave the field. Real safety doesn't come from demanding the impossible. It comes from managing risk openly, proportionally, and adaptively.
Okay, so let's pivot. If that's the diagnosis, what's the cure? How do we embed proportionality back into the science of responsible innovation? How do we start moving back toward disciplined judgment?
It has to be structural. It's not just about asking people to, be more reasonable. The first step is explicit classification.
So getting away from the rhetoric.
Totally. You have to analytically assess the severity, the likelihood, the reversibility, and the distribution for any given risk. A system that's low likelihood and high reversibility should not get the same level of scrutiny as one that's high magnitude and low reversibility. It just shouldn't.
So you're treating it like an engineering problem again. You're classifying the variables against a framework, even if there's a lot of uncertainty.
Exactly right. And that classification leads you straight to the second step, differentiated governance.
Applying different rules for different risks.
Yes. For those truly high-severity, low-reversibility risks, the ones you can't undo, that's when you justify a highly precautionary stance, maybe even non-proliferation, saying this tech is just too dangerous to spread widely.
But most risks aren't like that. They're in the middle somewhere.
And for those moderate, medium-level risks, you shift your focus. You focus on resilience engineering. You build systems with good monitoring, with circuit breakers, and, this is crucial, with guaranteed rollback mechanisms.
So you don't aim for zero failure. You aim for fast recovery.
Fast, limited recovery. And for the low-severity stuff, that's what insurance, mitigation, and compensation are for. The level of control has to match the risk profile. It has to be rigorous.
But this can't be a one-time thing, can it? I mean, technologies evolve.
Oh, absolutely not. Proportionality has to be continuously revisited. A model with 1 billion parameters is fundamentally different from one with 10 trillion. The governance has to evolve right alongside the technology's actual capabilities, not just the initial hype or fear.
So at the end of the day, restoring proportionality, it's not about being dismissive of harm.
It's the opposite. It's how you take harm seriously. It forces you to put your limited resources, your time, your money, your attention, where they will actually make the biggest difference.
It stops us from getting bogged down in symbolic fights over low probability risks.
And lets us do the real work to protect ourselves from actual systemic danger. It is the only way we can disagree with each other about huge issues without the entire conversation collapsing into moral warfare.
You know, the technologies that are defining this decade, their general purpose, they touch everything. And without this shared framework of proportionality, governance just becomes theater. And responsibility becomes just a slogan.
But if we get it back, if we restore it, we regain that crucial ability to distinguish, to see what needs restraint and what just needs resilience and speed.
Sure.
We can move fast without pretending it's free. We can pursue progress without being blind to the costs.
It's a huge challenge. The source material leaves us with this one thought that really stuck with me. A reminder that at the frontier of technology, humanity is the experiment.
And just think about the discipline and the humility you need to keep that experiment from becoming reckless or from becoming paralyzed. Restoring proportionality, really, it means making a conscious choice to replace absolutism with judgment. That is the work ahead of us.